Hey guys, welcome or welcome back. If you are new here, I'm Lori. I am the creator behind Stitch and Moan, which is a small crochet business specializing in cute and creepy crochet plushies. Always cute, sometimes creepy. So today what I wanted to do is share some tips that I wish I had a year ago when I started crocheting. And this is tips on crocheting with black yarn from someone who does it a lot. So obviously this guy has a ton of black yarn, and then you can see some of my friends up here that I have not put in my Etsy shop or have not sold yet. I'll keep him here with me. I use a lot of black yarn. Like, I pretty much use it, I would say, almost every day, if not several times a week. I knew when I first started my crochet business that I wanted to specialize in like horror plushies and Halloween creepy things, stuff like that. When I first started crocheting, I remember I made the first time I used black yarn, I made a wind spinner with like cotton yarn, which is a little bit thinner than like an acrylic yarn. The one that I used was anyway. And I remember getting it started thinking like, I can't do this. Like, this is kind of hard. And I struggled with it. So I Googled how to crochet with black yarn. And like, I saw all of these Reddit subs come up and it freaked me out. I was like, oh great. Like, I want to specialize in horror crochet. Gonna have to use a lot of black yarn, and I can't do it. So I finished that wind spinner. I have no idea where it is. Even added a few picot stitches in there, which I was pretty proud of. And after I did that, the next thing I made was this guy. Not this exact one, but this pattern. I don't have him anymore because I needed his yarn, so he had to be frogged. Plus he turned out terrible. It was my first time doing like an amigurumi like that, so it was like bad. But anyway, this guy is the third thing that I crocheted, and like, this obviously has a ton of black yarn, and I'm pleased to say that at some point, like I think doing his hood, I sat on the couch and was just, you know, like, oh, okay, I can do this and not, you know, freak out about it. So it can be tricky, I'm not gonna lie. And there were times where I was like, this is a lot. And I posted something about like crocheting with black yarn, and someone suggested getting one of those little neck lights. So I was gonna do that, but I just never got around to it. When I first started crocheting, my crochet area was in my living room. My chair that I would sit in was right in front of a window. Like, the window was behind me, so I had plenty of light. So I never got one of those neck things. But I found that throughout like my crocheting, I'm not a gadget person. So I don't use like headlamps. I don't use lighted hooks, which I think they are very cool, but I don't have them. And I don't use the neck lamp. But in this video, I will tell you what I do use. Okay, so my first tip, and I've got my notes here, start off big. So obviously, he was pretty much where I did most of my practice. You need to make him, you have to do his legs, attach them under his, sorry, ghosty, under his costume here. You've got like the body that you have to make. Then you do, and you know, all this, and then you do the little frayed parts, his arms, more frayed parts, and then this whole hood. And of course his eyes and his mouth, but like this And I can't remember, I think these are all doubles. That's a lot. Like, and I used Bernat blanket yarn on him with, at the time I was using an 8mm hook because I was still in the mindset that whatever the label said the hook size you needed was the one that you had to use. Like, it was illegal to use a different hook. So I started off with Bernat blanket yarn and an 8mm hook. Doing that really helped me to be able to see how the stitches are formed and what they were supposed to look like. I started crocheting on Thanksgiving of last year, so the very end of November, and I made this guy the first couple weeks of December. So I was still trying to get used to what the stitches looked like and how the different ones looked when they were built upon each other, like his costume here. So I think that really helped me because I was able to actually see all of my stitches. That doesn't mean that I have not used other yarns, but honestly for me, starting off with like a bigger project really helped me to kind of get, you know, used to what it was going to look like when you were using black yarn, because I'd never used it. Just seeing how everything worked up and the constant repetition. So, you know, you get good at it when you make this guy, I think anyway. My next tip, I just kind of mentioned it, was lighting. Obviously you have to be in a well-lit area when you're going to be crocheting anyway, but it's especially important when you are using black yarn because those stitches are not easy to see. As I mentioned, when I first started crocheting, I had a window at my back and I would crochet mostly in the morning and then in the afternoon. I very rarely was able to crochet in the evening. And the few times I did, I had a lamp right next to me and I would actually like hold my work right under that lamp to be able to see if I needed to. But for the most part, like I always, when I know I'm going to be working with black yarn, I try to make sure to schedule it when it is bright outside. Like right now, if I had a project with black yarn, it would be a pretty good time to do it because we're getting some good light in here right now. Anyway, just to keep your eyes from not going like completely crossed, definitely make sure you have good lighting. Do it in the daytime, do it when you can during the day. That way you can see. And okay, my third tip is something that for a long time I would not do, and now if I could go back, I would definitely say you need to do this, and that is take breaks and take them often. I read somewhere that you should take a break after 30 minutes, like every 30 minutes when you're crocheting, you should take a break. And I didn't do that. And I know when you're in the zone, it's kind of hard to get out of that and to go do something else to give your eyes and your hands a break. When I first started out, I did not want to do that because I love crocheting so much and it just relaxed me to the point where I feel like I didn't need to take a break because crocheting was my break. And then I started getting headaches and my eyes started bothering me and my hands started cramping. So take the advice that I didn't listen to at first, but always do now. Take breaks. I know some people have said that when they crochet with black yarn for a certain amount of time, they actually get dizzy. I don't know if that's ever happened to me or not. Probably, but you got to take breaks. Your eyes and your hands will thank you. So this next one, I used a lot with this guy. Stitch markers are your friends. So when I was making him, Actually, I think the most problems that I had came from making his head, but we're talking about the black yarn right now. So what I was doing, just to make sure I knew what I was, you know, kind of where I was in the pattern, I would read the pattern, know when I was supposed to do, like, if it was, and I'm just making these numbers up, if it's supposed to be like 42 single crochets around, then I would count like halfway through and put a stitch marker. And then I would start my single crochet, and I knew when I got to that stitch marker, I was supposed to be at, like, what did I say, 42? I was supposed to be at 21. Now, if I did not get to 21, I knew that I either skipped a stitch or did too many stitches, like maybe I accidentally threw an increase in there somewhere, but the stitch markers really helped me. There for a while, I was doing them every 10 stitches just to make sure I was hitting where I needed to be. And you can also do that when you are first starting out, and I used to have a really hard time counting the rounds. So I would put a stitch marker in, especially in some of these, like the costume, when you need to make sure that you're doing it for a certain length, because I have made him when his costume's way too long and it looks terrible. But it helps you to kind of keep an eye on, or keep track of where you are in your pattern. And when you're doing something big, if you're doing something for like a custom order and you're on a time crunch, you don't want to mess around with having to frog a bunch of stuff and redo it. So stitch markers are your friends. Use them often. I like using using big stitch markers, especially when I'm using like the bigger yarn. It's helpful. They're there for a reason. I always like to use like different colors, and then I will like notate it on like a piece of paper or whatever. Like if I'm working on something, I will make sure that I won't use, like if I'm using a green stitch marker to start my round, I won't use another green one to count ahead or whatever. I'll use like a smaller orange one or whatever, just to make sure that I don't like screw up, because I've done this before. Learn from my mistakes. So you don't accidentally think that this one over here, which was actually counting your 15th stitch to keep you in line, is your starting stitch, and then you just, you know, completely screw up your entire project. So use them. They are there for a reason. My next tip, and this is the one that if anything else, like this is a really good one. Use your sense of touch. When I was first starting out, you can feel, especially on these bigger yarns, you can feel just, and I don't know how I'm going to be able to do this on camera. You can feel when you have a stitch. You can see my fingers, like those are stitches that I'm like, and also this is like one of my first projects, like I said, so my tension was awful. Like I can put my fingers through here. Anyway, you can, 1, 2, 3, 4. So feeling that space will help you find your stitch. That is what I did for the longest time, and I still have to do it on black velvet yarn. That's the yarn that has humbled me. But blanket yarn, you know, you can feel it. So that is one of my go-to is using your sense of touch to make sure that you can feel those stitches, and when you can't really see how they are. My next tip is one that I couldn't really follow a whole lot, and it is use a light colored background when you are crocheting. About 95% of my wardrobe is black or dark gray, obviously. So, and then I have like a blanket that I always have over me, and it's navy blue. So I don't have a whole lot of like light colored articles of clothing that I could use. So that one wasn't really something that I could personally do a whole lot. I have put like a white binder in my lap before and like used it as like a table when I was first starting out. But I have heard that it helps. That's not something that happens very often for me, so that's not one that I wanted to rely on. But I mean, I'm sure not everybody's wardrobe looks like Morticia Adams, so if you're a normal person with normal colored normal colored clothes, then you can put something light on, so you can actually see what you're doing. My next tip, and this kind of goes along with the stitch markers, count often, like every row, which I do that anyway. I got into that habit when I first started. I am not one of the people who can just kind of do it and hope we end up at the end. I count my stitches, I count my rows, I count everything. I don't want to mess something up, especially if you're working on something like this for someone. You want to make sure you're accurate. But when I say, in this instance, to count often, like I said with the stitch markers, if you have a single crochet row round of 42, I would put a stitch marker every 10 stitches and make sure that I hit every one of those, and then I would go back and do it again, and I would go back and count again, and I would do that for like every round. It takes a little bit of time, but the more you do it, you know, you'll get the hang of it. But I think counting just to make sure that your stitches are lining up and you're getting where you need to be by the time you get to the end of your round is very important. That way you don't have to frog and do all that work over and try to find those stitches again, and you can just, you know, do it and move on with your life. My next tip is take your time. You don't have to like crochet super fast. When I first started crocheting and following other crochet artists, the big thing was speed, like how fast you could go. And that's really not what I'm crocheting for. It's not to knock out 15 plushies a week, unless I'm market prepping, and then, you know, then sometimes we do kind of speed it up a little bit. I'm fast anyway when it comes to crocheting. Lately I have forced myself to like really slow down and like be more present in what I'm doing. But taking your time and making sure you're hitting those stitches, making sure you're lining up with your stitch markers, it's you know, really important, because you don't want to rush through one round and then get to the end of it and you've, you know, missed 3 stitches. It's very frustrating. I've been there, because then you're going to have to frog, or you're going to have to count back and figure, you know, just take your time. You'll thank yourself in the end. Like, you don't have to put pressure on yourself. It's not a race. Take your time, go at your own pace, and just enjoy what you're doing. Even though I have heard a lot of people say that they hate using black yarn. I cannot imagine. Take your time, enjoy the process, enjoy what you're doing, and really like get to know what it's like to work with the black yarn. That sounded kind of woo-woo, didn't it? And finally, my last tip, which is a very obvious one, but you know, I'm going to share it anyway. Practice a lot. Now, as you can see, I've got a bunch of stuff up here. I have made so many of this guy, I just don't even know. I can't even count. And then I've got a little vulture right here. I've got Skelly here. There's another clown right there. We have a scorpion. Just gonna start unloading everything. We have a cauldron because it's Halloween time. This guy was fun. A black little black cat from Madeline Mayco. An ant. This was with Parfait Chunky. This was with Bernat Blanket. The cauldron is Big Twist Posh when it was still around. Ant in Parfait Chunky from Murphy Crochets. We've got the Loaf Cat from Annie Caraway in Blanket Yarn. Nevermore the Raven, Snuggler, done in Posh. And then I've got Wednesday, Jack. I don't know if I'm allowed to call him that because of copyrights, but anyway. And then this guy. Yeah, that was, and I've made 3 of him, not this size. But that's a lot of work. That is a lot of black yarn right there. I think this was like 2 skeins of Bernat Blanket, but anyway. As with anything, getting good at something, you've got to do it a lot. And obviously the type of crochet that I gravitate toward, it's gonna mean using a lot of it. So, you know, I'm constantly practicing and constantly working on it. I am now to the point where there are certain yarns I can use without having too much of an issue. Like Parfait Chunky, the thinner yarns, I will always make sure I'm using those during the day, where I have like good natural light. Blanket yarn projects, I can work by a lamp, or like an overhead light, but I hate overhead lights, so we hardly ever use those in this house. But blanket yarn projects, I can use a lamp. So if I have time in the evening, which I rarely do, I can work on the bigger yarn projects in the evening. But yeah, practice, like I said, with anything, with any new skill. If you're not used to it, then you got to just keep working at it. Find a pattern that you love, like the Loaf Cat pattern, I think would be a good one because it's so easy. And there's a lot of repetition in the rounds in the middle. Plus, you know, it could give you some practice with sewing the tail, bobble stitches, dirty, bobble stitches, and working in the front loop and the back loop of your stitches. So yeah, that would be a good one to start with. Just throwing that out there. But practice. I know that's, you know, practice makes perfect is like so cliche and everything, but it has, you know, it's true. The more you do it, the better you get. I've been crocheting for almost a year, and like I said at the beginning of this video, I use black yarn weekly, and I feel very comfortable with it. It does not hurt my eyes anymore. I don't get dizzy. I don't have eye strain because I know what my limits are. So, you know, I feel like I am qualified to speak on this topic. So those are my tips. If you have any more, drop them in the comments below. You know, let's share what we know. And if you have any questions for me, drop those in the comments below and I'll try to answer them, or like maybe even do a follow-up video. Just, you know, I want to share my knowledge about doing this, you know, crocheting with black yarn, with anybody who might be struggling with it, because I know it's spooky season, and I should have done this video like in the beginning of October, but if you have any questions for me and Ghosty, let us know and we will try to answer them, help you out any way that we can. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you learned something, learned a new trick, learned a new whatever, or if anything, it is encouraging you to give it a try. It's, you know, not easy when you first start doing it, but once you get the hang of it, It's just like any other yarn. I think actually I struggle with white yarn more than any other color, even now. So that's, you know, everybody has different skill levels, everybody has different comfort levels, and I'm definitely comfortable with black yarn. But anyway, if you have any other questions or anything, or if you liked this video and you want to see more content like this, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave me a comment down below. Tell me what your favorite tip was, or something that you may not have thought of before. Or if you have a really good one, leave that down for us below also. And let's try to encourage each other and make black yarn seem not as scary and daunting to use. So with all of that, thank you for watching my video today. Thanks for visiting me if you're new. And if you have been here a while and you know my love for all things horror and whatever, thanks for coming back, and I will see you next week. And until then, happy crocheting with black yarn.